You think you know yourself? Think again. That version of you, the one you present to the world, the one you're comfortable with, it's only half the story. And the other half? That's what Carl Jung would say is keeping you trapped in the same patterns that frustrate you day after day. In this video, we're diving into the shadows. Not just any shadows, your shadows. The parts of yourself you've buried so deep, you don't even recognize them anymore. The parts that are actually running the show, while you think you're in control. What if I told you that the personality traits you're most proud of are the exact same ones causing your biggest problems? That the mask you wear is suffocating the very potential you're trying to reach? That's not just psychology. That's the brutal truth Jung discovered decades ago, that most people are still too uncomfortable to face. Stay with me for the next few minutes and I promise you'll see yourself differently, maybe for the first time in your life. This isn't about feeling good, this is about getting free. And here's where it gets interesting. The traits we develop to protect ourselves eventually become the very things that limit us. Your strength becomes your prison. The intellectual who uses rationality as armor never experiences the emotional depth they secretly crave. The caregiver, who's always there for others, never learns to receive, and wonders why they feel so empty. Are you using your personality as a shield, or as a bridge? Because there's a critical difference. The second brutal truth is that your irritations with others are actually projections of your disowned self. You know that person who just gets under your skin? The one whose behavior makes your blood boil for reasons you can't fully explain? Jung would say, you're not actually angry at them. You're angry at the part of yourself they represent. It's the part you've rejected so thoroughly that you can only see it in others. This is the psychological mechanism Jung called projection. And honestly, it's one of the mind's favorite tricks. We take qualities we can't accept in ourselves and, well, we attribute them to others instead. That colleague whose arrogance drives you crazy? Look a little closer. There's likely a disowned part of you that wants to speak up and take space just as boldly. But you've decided, that's not acceptable. When was the last time someone really triggered you? Just pause this video for a second and think about what specifically bothered you about them. Now comes the uncomfortable part. Where might that same quality be hiding in you? Maybe in a different form. So the third brutal truth is perhaps the most difficult to swallow. Your most traumatic experiences weren't random. Your psyche actually attracted them for completion. Now let me be exceptionally clear. This is not about blame. Trauma is never your fault. But Jung recognized that our unconscious mind is constantly seeking wholeness, even through painful means. The psyche wants integration, at any cost. That relationship pattern that keeps showing up? Or those situations where you feel powerless in eerily familiar ways? Jung would suggest your unconscious is recreating conditions from your past that remain unresolved. Not because you want to suffer, but because, honestly, some part of you is determined to finally get it right. The fourth brutal truth is this. Your personal shadow grows in direct proportion to the rigidity of your moral code. The stricter your internal rules about who you should be, the larger your shadow becomes. Think about it for a moment. Every time you decide, I'm not the kind of person who does that, you're actually pushing another aspect of your humanity into the darkness. The person who prides themselves on always being kind often has unexpressed rage festering beneath the surface. And, the one who values complete honesty may actually be hiding from deeper truths they can't face about themselves. Jung observed that the most morally rigid people often experience the most dramatic shadow eruptions. That's why the most judgmental people can suddenly act completely out of character, totally bewildering everyone around them. Everyone except Jung, who would simply nod and say, the shadow always finds a way. The fifth brutal truth cuts straight to your core. The parts of yourself you're most ashamed of hold your greatest gifts. Jung discovered something pretty remarkable about the shadow. It doesn't just contain our darkest impulses, it also houses our most powerful untapped potential. The sensitivity you've always deemed a weakness might actually be the source of your greatest empathy. And the anger you suppress, it might hold the assertiveness you desperately need. Think of it this way, energy is energy. When you reject parts of yourself, you're not eliminating them. You're just ensuring they'll express themselves unconsciously, often destructively. But when you reclaim them consciously, you can transform that same energy into something powerful. What quality have you been trying to eliminate from your personality? What if instead of fighting it, you asked, what wisdom might this part of me hold? What power am I refusing to claim? The sixth brutal truth is, the one that explains why personal growth feels so damn hard. Your ego will fight to maintain its identity, even at the cost of your happiness. Your ego, that part of you that maintains your sense of self, has one primary job: to preserve your existing identity. It doesn't care if that identity is limiting you or making you miserable. It only cares about consistency and survival. That's why meaningful change often feels like a small death, because in a way it is. When you truly transform, some version of your former self must die, and your ego will fight this process with everything it has, creating fear, rationalizations, even physical symptoms to keep you in familiar territory. The seventh and final brutal truth Jung would tell you today is that individuation requires facing the pain you've spent your life avoiding. Here's the reality: most self-help content won't tell you. Becoming whole isn't always pleasant. It's not about positive affirmations and comfort. True individuation, Jung's term for becoming your complete self, requires wading directly into the psychological waters you've been carefully avoiding. The anxiety that rises when you consider a certain path, the grief you've never fully processed, the rage you don't allow yourself to feel, that's your roadmap. The very experiences that feel most threatening to your identity are precisely where your freedom lies. Jung would tell you that the only way out is through. Growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone, not 10 miles beyond it in some heroic feat, but right at that tender edge, where you feel vulnerable, but not shattered. Let me offer you a practical tool Jung might have suggested if he were here today. It's called shadow journaling, and it works like this. For the next week, at the end of each day, write down one moment when you felt triggered, judgmental, or unusually emotional. Then ask 3 questions. First, if this reaction were trying to teach me something about myself, what would it be? Second, what disowned quality of mine might I be seeing in this situation? And third, how might integrating this quality in a healthy way actually serve me? The insights that emerge might surprise you, because here's what Jung understood that most people miss. The shadow isn't your enemy, it's the other half of your power. Integration doesn't mean becoming perfect, it means becoming whole. It means having access to your full range of human qualities and choosing consciously which ones to express in each moment. And the irony is, once you embrace your full humanity, light and shadow alike, you'll find yourself making more ethical choices, not fewer, because real morality comes from awareness, not repression. So let me ask you, are you ready to meet yourself, your whole self? Because the parts of you that have been waiting in the shadows aren't going anywhere, and they have gifts to offer that might just transform everything. If this video shifted something in you, hit subscribe and join us on this journey of psychological transformation. Because understanding the algorithm of human behavior isn't just interesting, it's the key to freedom. Remember, your shadow doesn't disappear when you look away. It grows. Turn and face it instead. That's where you'll find the version of yourself you've been searching for all along.